highest-ranking House member of both the bipartisan House Senate Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe. Congressman Smith has long been one of the strongest supporters of Copts in Congress. He has introduced numerous bills, resolutions, and spent countless hours engaging in quiet diplomacy on behalf of persecuted minorities worldwide. Congressman Smith is also a former recipient of Coptic Solidarity's Annual Leadership Award. Please have a warm welcome in Germany.
I would have preferred the other speaker continue. That was fascinating. It was very insightful. So thank you for those insights that were provided. I hope you come back up. I'll be sure so that you can. It is so good to be here to join you. Coptic Solidarity. This is the 9th time, and I think it's got to be every year, and maybe more than that, as you mobilize and make sure that Congress, House, and Senate, the President, fully understand the repression that the Coptics Christians are experiencing in Egypt and elsewhere. So I want to thank you for that really dogged determination to make sure we get it right. It is, as Hamid said a moment ago, it's not just the government or that person or that personality. It really comes down to civil society and ensuring that there is a robust effort that is across the board, aggressive, benignly aggressive, to get the job done. I noticed that Dr. David Alton is here. Dr. Alton, or David, Lord Alton, is a tremendous global human rights icon. He is incredibly effective all over the world. Great to see you again. Thank you for your work that is everywhere, including and especially in Egypt, on behalf of the Coptic Christians and the at-risk Christians throughout the Middle East who are under a siege, the likes of which we have not seen perhaps ever. Maybe you have to go back to the 1st century to see a systematic persecution that is occurring right within our midst. And it is global, as we all know. My committee is called the Africa Global Health, Global Human Rights. I also chair the Helsinki Commission. I also chair the China Commission. And the attacks against people of faith are persistent. The pervasive use of torture everywhere, what ISIS has done to so many Coptic Christians is outrageous. But we do have tools to fight back. First and foremost, we have prayer. And I do that prayer changes things. I love our Lord's statement in John 14:14, where he said, anything you ask me in my name, I will do. We are told, admonished elsewhere in the scriptures, in the Gospels, that we have to ask persistently, we have to ask without ceasing, and we have to ask believing that it will happen. So we need to be praying for that better day. Meanwhile, we need to occupy and fight as hard as we can, using every tool at our disposal to turn back this repression. A couple of years ago, I was the author of the Frank Wolf, a great champion of religious freedom, but I called it the Frank Wolf International Religious Freedom Act. It reauthorized the original law that he did in 1998, and we put in a number of best practices, including designated persons, the idea of holding individual abusers to account, similar to what we're doing with the Magnitsky Act, so that when people do persecute, when we know those names, our government can say, you won't get a visa and you can't do business here, to take the economic, or give them the economic sanctions. That legislation also makes stronger both the commission, but also support the IRFA office, the International Religious Freedom Office, that is led so well by Sam Brownback, Ambassador at Large, former governor, former House member, former Senate member. There was this guy that has really worn multiple hats with distinction. Is Sam Brownback. Well, he now walks point on behalf of religious freedom. So we need to be, all of us, getting to him and to his office for action by the administration efforts. I'll give you one area that I've been deeply concerned about. I know you are as well. And I've had 4 congressional hearings on it. And that is the abduction of Coptic Christian girls and young women to be forced into marriages. And I believe it is a form of modern-day slavery. I've written 4 laws. Another one, the 5th, is hopefully going to be passed very shortly. The Senate gets around to doing it. To combat modern-day slavery, this cruelty of forcing people into sex or labor trafficking. What do you think forcing a young Coptic Christian girl into a marriage where she is abused, It is a way, I've even heard the term Islamizing the womb, so that every child born to her later will be an Islamic child. If somebody wants to be of any faith, that's up to them. But to force, to coerce, to use pressure of that kind is absolutely outrageous. I raised it with El Sisi when he was here last year. He seemed not to know much about it, and I said, please, Mr. President, this has to change. It is going on, and I've heard from and met with fathers and family members of abducted young women, and it's a cruelty. As a father myself, I can't even begin to fathom what it must be like. We also have a bill, and again, in this ongoing effort, and Dr. George Cris, thank you for your presidency and your leadership of this very important effort. But it is to help the Christians that escaped ISIS. Just to show you how AWOL, absent without leave, the last administration was when it came to helping the Christians who made it into Erbil, and I visited with them, I think David, you've done it as well, to see Archbishop Warda of the Chaldean Catholic Church saying, where is the U.S. government? Why do you refuse to help us? So I held not one, not two, 10 congressional hearings asking, pleading, appealing to the administration to provide the necessary funds for food, clothing, shelter, and security for the some 70,000 that has escaped ISIS. Every single one of them had horrible stories of lost loved ones, beheadings, killings. Sometimes a few were lucky that their families were able to leave intact. Most of them had multiple deaths and injuries to their family members. Traumatized people, buoyed by the gospel, filled with hope because of their faith in Jesus Christ, but still very much hurt. And our government hasn't done anything to help them. It was for the Knights of Columbus and a lot of other Christian charities that provided upwards of $60 million. We would have had not just traumatized and wounded, but dead internally displaced persons. So I have a bill. I introduced it 20 months ago. Took me a number of months to get out of the House. It passed last June, 1 year ago. H.R. 390. It's a bill to provide emergency aid to those fleeing, those Christians fleeing the terrible genocide. And the Senate has sat on it for 1 whole year. We're trying still. I'm on the phone several times a week. Visits to members of the Senate. Holds keep getting placed on it. Very undemocratic. And what's the bottom line? This food, clothing, shelter, medicine, security aid, repatriation, those who want to go back to Mosul and to Nineveh Plain, but under safe circumstances, they are being denied this money. Thankfully, our Vice President, Mike Pence, has stepped up and said, we're going to help, but we've got to get that done. The bill would ensure that it gets done. And again, it's languishing in the Senate. I am more than angry that the Senate has put it up, and buttonholed it for a full year. I'll tell you when it passed. I got the bill with me. It passed June 6th of last year, and it's still in the House, still languishing in the Senate. Now, I hear all these crocodile tears for the Christians. Well, here's a bill that will make the difference to help them, and the senators just sit on it. So we're going to keep our push to try to get that legislation to the president. President Trump has said he will sign it. He made it absolutely clear. So it's not a matter of if, it's a clear statement of intent, and yet we can't get it over to him yet. So I want to just finish by saying how grateful I am to you. You helped mobilize us. This is a place where the squeaky wheel does get the wheel. Part of it is that there's so many issues that are under consideration at all times, so it's hard to stay focused for a House or Senate. But when you come up here and you just provide us with insight and the passion you bring to it, it does inspire and it does mobilize us to fight and to pray. So thank you.